I'm Movie Man. I'm an octopus who reviews movies, and today's review is going to be on. So today I saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I've watched the previous four indie movies. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. They're both masterpieces in my opinion. Temple of the Doom, I wouldn't quite call a masterpiece, but I still think it's a fantastic movie nonetheless. And then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is just lackluster, honestly. It's not a terrible movie, but it's not a very good film. Very inferior to the original trilogy. So now, 15 years later, we have the new film, The Dial of Destiny. I'll be honest. This was a film that I honestly had pretty low expectations for. Honestly, because the trailers just weren't doing it for me, and not to mention the when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival last month, and I saw that the reviews were quite underwhelming, so I just started to get a little. I was kind of having low expectations for this movie. And the film released there, and the reviews actually did improve quite a bit. Because some people said that it actually wasn't that bad. So some people didn't like it, but then others were actually saying it was good. And in my opinion, I wouldn't say this film was terrible. Hell, I don't even know if I'd call it straight up bad, but I'll be honest though, I didn't think it was that great either. But let's go deeper into my thoughts. So first up, the cinematography in this film is honestly really good. The film is shot very well. I think the editing is very good too. I think the film is edited very well. Yeah, I think the lighting in the movie is very good too. I will say that one thing this film does improve upon over Kings of Crystal is that it looks way better, honestly. So yeah, as far as the cinematography, editing, lighting, it was pretty good. It was actually very good, honestly. Now there's the film's pace. Another thing which I think this movie improves upon over Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is its pace, because Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it drags quite a bit in the first half for me. It did start to get a little more fast paced when it came along, but the climax though was just way too fast paced, honestly. The original indie trilogy, they were all very fast paced, but you didn't really, it wasn't really an issue though, honestly, because they had there was so much fun, there was so much going on that really kept you entertained. And I'll be honest, I don't think the pace in this movie is actually that bad for the most part. I think for the most part of this film, it doesn't rush, but it doesn't really drag either. Well, it rushes kind of a bit, but not really though. I didn't really feel it drag. At least for most of the movie, anyways. However, I'll admit around the climax, I kinda did start to feel it drag a tiny bit, honestly. So yeah, the pace in this movie, it was improved over Kings of the Crystal Skull, but I still think it could have been a tiny bit better in some areas. Then there's the sounds and music. Now obviously this film is once again composed by John Williams, who is in his 90s now, I think. And yeah, I'm pretty sure, from what, I don't know if I understand, but from what I've heard, I think this is actually meant to be the last, or was only one of the last movies that John Williams composed for, because I think he's actually planning to retire, and well, no wonder, sure, because like I think he's like in his 90s now. But yeah, yeah, I think once again, John Williams, he still just kills it with the soundtrack. So yeah, the soundtrack in this movie is very good. Then there's the visual effects. Now, I mean, obviously, because at the start of the film, Indy is de-aged quite a bit, because, they need to make Indy look a lot younger than Harrison Ford is when they're filming it, and I didn't have much of an issue with it for the most part, but however, I will admit that at times, when you looked at it very closely, it did look kind of weird, alright, but I didn't think it was that bad for the most part, and I will say that I actually don't think the CGI in this movie is actually that bad. Like, I think one thing this film massively improves upon over Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is its CGI. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't think the CGI is that great, because there are scenes where like characters like fall off of things, and the quick way they fall is can honestly be like really hilarious. If it's like it's a detail you need to like properly look at, but other than that, I don't think the CGI is that bad. Like, I mean, it's definitely way better than the Flash's CGI. I'll definitely admit that. So then we have the characters. So Indy, once again, he's still the same protagonist that we've come to know from the older movies, and once again Harrison Ford now is over 80 years old. So I mean, he still does a very good job. He doesn't do quite the same stunts that he did. Well, Indy doesn't like do the exact same like things that he did. It's not quite as action heavy in this film, which is understandable considering Harrison's over 80 years old now, but nonetheless, he still does very much get engaged with the action, and he is still once again a very fun character, and I mean, like, I do think this film could explore Indy's. I feel like this movie didn't really do a very good job explaining of like showing more of Indy's aging, because I feel like that was something Into the Crystal Skull missed out on, where like Indy's aging just wasn't really a huge part of the plot in that film, and in this movie it's kind of more into the plot a tiny bit, but even then I still felt like they didn't really utilize it very much. So Indy's still a very good character nonetheless, but I feel like they could have done more with the whole with the aspect of him where he's aging. But he's still a good protagonist nonetheless. Then we have Helena, who is Indy's goddaughter, and I'll be honest, I think for most of the movie she's fine. Like, she's alright. I'll be honest, from the trailers I saw, I kind of thought, oh god, I get what, I think she's gonna be kind of annoying, but I actually didn't think she was. I didn't think she was that bad actually. Like, I actually thought she was alright for most of the film. I thought she could have been a lot worse, honestly. I'll be honest, there were one or two scenes where she could get a tiny bit irritating, alright, but for most of the film, she's fine. She's alright. And there's also, we don't see him very much in the trailers, but there's this kid in the movie named Teddy, and like he just comes into the film out of nowhere, and like, I mean, at least this isn't the first time that Indy has had a kid on his journey with him, because of course in Temple of Doom we had Short Round, but Short Round was an entertaining character. He was very fun, and of course, we had a great performance from Ke Huy Quan. Sorry if I butchered his name. Who was after having a resurgence as of recently. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see the adventures of an ultra Short Round. But, however, Teddy, on the other hand, I mean, he's not an annoying kid, but oh boy. He is really boring. he just comes into the film halfway through, and then he just decides to join Indy and Helena on their journey, and like he doesn't really do much for most of the film except kind of stand around a bit, and he's just so boring. And the kid who plays him, Isidore. Now, I don't want to discourage him or anything, but his performance wasn't very good, honestly. He just looks kind of bored for most of the film. And now, of course, that's not his fault. That's the fault of like the director and stuff, and the people working on the film. They just didn't give him the right script to work with. But yeah, I'm sorry, but Teddy was just a really boring character, honestly. And there's also a few characters in it that are they're in the movie like very briefly, and they're just not utilized very well. Like, for example, Antonio Banderas, that's right, Puss in Boots himself, is actually briefly in this film as this character named Ronaldo, who was like a diver, and Puss in Boots is just put to waste in this film. Like, he's in this film for like really no reason, like other than just like a glorified cameo. Like, I mean, you could have just replaced him with some other actor, and honestly, I don't really think much would have changed. So yeah, Puss in Boots was just wasted in this film. Sala. Aha, money, do. Was also briefly in the movie, and I'll admit he does have a fun little cameo. There's a brief appearance from Toby Jones as Helena's father. Basil, he only appears in flashback scenes, but he's all right. Like, I think Toby Jones does a solid performance with what he's given. And there's also this CIA agent, I think, who hunts Indy down and stuff, and she's in the film for a tiny bit, but then the movie she just disappears at some point, and the movie just forgets about her completely. That little subplot, of her hunting Indy down, it's just thrown completely out the window. So yeah, one or two of the short appearances were pretty good, but others were just not very good. And then there's the villains. So the main villain of this movie is Jürgen Voller, who is a former Nazi, and he's played by Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Mads Mikkelsen is a really good actor, and he can definitely play a great villain. Like last year when he played Grindelwald, of course he was a replacement for Johnny Depp. Whatever your whole opinion is on the whole thing with Johnny Depp, you've got to admit Mikkelsen kills it in the role. But like his villain in this movie though, oh my gosh, he is by far the weakest villain that the Indy series has given us, because he was just, Mikkelsen did a good enough performance that he was given, but the villain that he played, he was just a very generic villain, and he was just very bland, and yeah, I feel like Mikkelsen got wasted, honestly. And he also has a few henchmen working for him as well. Like, there's this one main villain henchman of his name's like Kleber, I think. He's played by Holbrook, and like, he too is just very bland, honestly. He does a lot of the action alright, but like, in terms of character, like, as a villainous henchman, he's just really bland, honestly. So yeah, honestly, the villains in this movie sucked. So yeah, a few of the characters weren't too bad, but others were just really bland, honestly. And then there's the plot. Now Now this film it involves time travel, and this one has a similar problem to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Now in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, this is gonna be on popular opinion, but I actually didn't mind the whole thing about, aliens in the Indiana Jones universe, because I mean, we've had other crazy stuff in the indie films, so yeah, aliens just doesn't really seem like that big of an issue, honestly. But honestly, like, the problem with using aliens in the new indie movie was that they really just didn't use it to its potential. And in this film, I felt the exact same, like with the time travel plot and stuff. Like they just it wasn't bad or anything, but they just didn't use it to its full potential, honestly. So yeah, I thought like I like the plot of the film, with like Indy and his daughter, his goddaughter, and everything. Like it's a fun enough plot and everything, but again, they just could have done more with the whole thing about Indy like being older and stuff. So yeah, this film definitely had some interesting concepts, but it didn't do enough with them, honestly, which is what I felt. And then there's the narrative structure. Now the main plot with Indy and his goddaughter, right? Their plot, it is. I think their plot is entertaining enough, and it does carry the film, in my opinion. The plot with the villains, though, is just. It wasn't really a plot that I cared about, mainly because the villains were just so generic, honestly. And of course, then there's the subplot about the CIA agent lady who was hunting Indy down. That subplot's only in the film briefly, and then it's just completely forgotten about. So, yeah, honestly, overall, I was overall very mixed on this film, because don't know, there were some things I liked about it. It's like, I mean, it was a film that had good cinematography, good editing, lighting. The pace for the most part wasn't too bad. I think the film's soundtrack was very good. There was one or two characters who were pretty decent, and it did have some good concepts. The action was solid as well, I forgot to mention, and I thought overall, it did do some things which I did quite like. However, it also suffers, like, mainly from just having some characters who were like really boring. The villains in particular were very boring, and yeah, it just the whole concept with time travel, it could have been executed a lot better. Um, and yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it could have been a lot worse in my overall. This week could have been a lot worse in my opinion, but I still think it could have been a whole lot better. So yeah, this is a film which me personally I am I'm very in the middle with this film. It was an improvement over Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I will say that, but it does not come close to the original trilogy, and to be fair, I wasn't expecting it to. So I think overall with that, I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny a 5 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.